Hey guys and girlies, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Asus Prime AP202. So it's an MATX case, curved glass, comes with some lighting included, and also very funky airway pathway for the case to actually breathe. And all in all, it looks like a really pretty case. Also doesn't look very Asus at all, like there's no kind of linking between the brands in the grand scheme of things, but this does look really pretty. So I'm actually really looking forward to having a look around. So a quick skim around while I've got it powered up, just so that I can show you the lighting. The lighting is hidden underneath here, and this comes in the case as standard. The two fans in the side and the one fan in the back also come with the case, and they are RGB and all link up with everything as well. Everything else in the case you can just assume is what I've used to build it, but these do come with ARGB. These fans here are actually exhausting as well, which we will talk about in more depth in a minute. But where they are ARGB, you can change the lighting, you can change the modes, the colours, all of the things that you would expect to do as always. But this section in the lower is actually the intake for the case, because there are fans on the inside that I have fitted, but the air comes in this section, and then the actual main component area of the case is completely separate from the lower area. And in the lower area you have your power supply, and there are some hard drives in the front, which I will show you in a sec. But beyond that, we need to get to the nitty-gritty of the case and actually start looking at this as we would do with any other normal layout case. So I normally look at the top and the front to start off with, and we have a power switch here, a couple of USB 3s, a USB-C, combined headphone and microphone, and then a reset switch up here. I do like the fact that they've not coloured the USB 3s on this, and they've made them white, and it does just tie everything in really nicely. Now with the roof, there is a slight ridge on the outside of this panel, and it is there so that you can get your hand underneath it to release the top panel. You could be mistaken for assuming that those clips are meant to be released from the inside of the case, but you can just as easily do that. So they do latch on the other side and almost hinge, and then you just give them a little tap, and it is really easy to remove. Now you can get a couple of 140mm fans in the roof, but you can see that we've got room up here for an offset 360mm radiator. I've got a normal ROG AIO fitted in there with a 30mm thick rad and a set of normal 25mm thick fans, and you'll see that on the inside that there is ample room for that, which is why I've done it. But just popping that back on there as we do, and then bringing the table back up. Now what we can do is have a scan around, because we do have this curved glass on the side of the case, and it really does suit the design so nicely. I would say, like, I quite like a white rig with white lighting, but the fans in this do have a bit of a blue tinge to them. They're not what I would call true white. They're a very cool white. So I would be inclined to making these actually more yellow in the software, to take some of that blue tinge out of it, just to make them, like I said, more white and less kind of, they are like a very, very light blue. It depends whether you're a colour freak like I am as to whether or not that's going to drive you crackers or not. Round to the back of the case, power supply. It does actually breathe from the bottom. There is a very basic dust filter in the bottom for that. It's MATX only, well, MATX or ITX, but you've got 4 expansion slots in the back, 120mm fan mount in the rear. It does come with that one fitted. You can move it up and down to your heart's content, but obviously there's only so many times you can move it up or down. Round the back, this is actually a printed design on the side, and this is one of your exhausts, because the fans in the side have been set up as an exhaust. They are not reverse bladed. They are normal, conventional bladed fan, and I will say, other than the RGB, these fans really do not move a lot of air. They spin up to 2000 RPM, and they just don't move a great deal of air at 1600 RPM, and they just don't move a lot of air at all. Even at max, they are just not very performance orientated. I was doing using like a shipping label. You can get the shipping labels with a bit of cotton on that you stick on, and then it flaps, and I literally was hanging the cotton down here, and the label wasn't even really moving, even at max. So I'm not overly impressed. When I do talk to you about the performance testing and we do max RPM, the other fans in the case will all do 2000. So we have utilised that as best as we possibly can do, but these just, like I said, they don't really move a great deal of air. And if I'm honest, as you'll see in the testing as well, other than aesthetics, I would personally say that these are just fans to kind of bin off, unless you do not have a hot system at all. If you're very cool system or want something horrifically quiet and are not worried about airflow, then fine. But if you are going to have a performance rig in here and you're going to end up relying on these, I would swap them out for something else. And if you think about it, you're going to need to buy fans for the bottom and an AIO anyway, so chucking an extra few fans on, and then they're all going to match. I think that is going to be worth it. Round the back though, standard layout for your power supply, facing downwards. You cannot have it facing up. This lower section is completely independent from the upper chamber of the case, and it is separated by this section here. And you'll see the fan grills on the inside in a minute. There is a channel up here with the Velcro that you can put your cables in. Because of the fans that I've had to use, whoever that is going to get shot. Okay, so because of the other fans in the case, so we've got 2 in the bottom and then the 3 in the roof. They are the normal ARGB ones where you have fan out cables, and they have separate 4-pin PWM connectors and then the 3-pin ARGB connectors. So there is an inherent a lot of cabling that goes with that. Because I had to use what I had kicking around, it could have ended up looking very messy. And I actually think the case has done a really good job of swallowing that. This chamber here has managed to keep everything together. Sure, we're not going to win any awards for cable management or cable tidying, or whatever you want to call it, but that's still not a disgusting spread sort of like spider web. So I think the case has done really well. While we are around the back though, do find it kind of strange that we don't have any Asus BTF or Project Zero support, and I kind of think that cases now should have that, especially for someone like Asus that was spearheading the whole BTF rear connectors from the start. I do think that this is then lacking. Something else I do think that it's lacking is grommets. We don't have a single grommet anywhere. It is just openings. When it's not a particularly cheap case, because I might as well say now it's £140, small things like this I think are essential. The fact that we've got no Project Zero, no grommets, it's a bit of a shame. There's not even, when you see on the other side, there's not even a cover or anything to try and hide the cable routing. So I do think that is a bit of a an issue for me. You do get a couple of hard drive mounts in the front. You can do normal 3.5s, and there is the mounting points on it as always for 2.5s as well. The actual cage for this is not removable unless you want to break out your drill, because they are riveted in, and I do think that should have had some kind of screws holding it in place rather than just permanently fixed. So I do think a lot of us would have found this quite handy to have been able to have removed and maybe even put other stuff down there. Now onto the main chamber of the case. The glass door, we'll call it, does come on a sliding mechanism and slides in this way, and then has pop clips on this side to locate into place. The slides, or the tracks, whatever you want to call them, are actually really overly braced. So they've been they've given it a lot more support and rigidity. When I was building the case though, one of the things I did find was this section was quite flexible. With the AIO in the roof, it has added a lot more strength. So I'll show you in the B-roll that this section can flex an awful lot. I do believe that the bracing that they've used in the front of the case should have been done all the way down the side as well, just to give this a bit more strength. But once the AIO is in, the AIO does play a part in adding structural support to the rest of the case. It's just, if you didn't go AIO in the roof, you may not have it. It's not a deal breaker, but to see that much flex in a case was a bit of an upset. And I think if it had a Corsair badge on it, people would have been flipping their loop about it, saying that the metal needed to be thicker and stronger. I do believe this needed a support bracket all the way down the end. As you've seen in the video though, even if you add sort of like weight onto the completely unopened part of the case, even without the AIO in, this bracing in the front actually adds so much strength to the case that the front does not flex. It is just this section. I'm being overly picky when I talk about it, but hey, that is what we're meant to do when we review a product. As I've stated, the lower part of the case is where the air comes in. It comes in the bottom. You can see my hand on the other side, and there is lots of breathing room for it down there. But as you can see with the graphics card, if you were to use one of the older 3000 series or backwards, or an AMD graphics cards, the 8 pins are going to get in the way of your third fan. If you were to have a third fan in here, you'd have to pull the cables right up or go over the top of your GPU. Now, I've done this to highlight it, just so that you can be aware. If you're going to have a normal 12 VH connector on it, you're not going to have any issues, but it is just something to keep in mind with that third fan. I've got the 2 in anyway, and if I'm completely honest, I didn't have any more Asus fans that I could have used. This actually came off of a AIO anyway. I had to rip them off just so that I could have some white Asus fans in the rig. And it kind of helped that they were ARGB from the AIO anyway, so they do kind of fit in. This lower section though, there are 3 thumb screws, and you can remove it completely to help you be able to fit the fans on and probably aid you with cooling and stuff. There is no dust filter on this lower section at all. That is something I did think was a bit of a miss. I did think it should have had a magnetic dust filter on the other side, because you could have put your hand underneath and removed it if it was magnetic, or when you removed the lower section completely. But I did think that not having any filtering on it at all was a bit of an oversight on their part. I did say that I did wish that the cable routes over here had a cover on it. I still do believe that at least this 24 pin and this upper section above the PCI Express should have had some kind of cover over it, like a shroud that went over, just so that you couldn't see straight into the back where all the mesh should have been, or is. And I think that again is a bit of an oversight. Now up into the upper section, I've got a ROG AIO in the roof, and it does only just come over the screw holes for the motherboard itself. One of the things that does mean is it does clear and is above where most memory modules are going to be, and it should clear everything but the largest VRM heat sinks. It does also mean that you have to have the motherboard in before you can fit the AIO, because otherwise you're not going to be able to do everything up. And one of the things I would suggest is fit your graphics card absolute last, because during the building process of this, I ended up refitting and removing the graphics card 4 or 5 times to be able to add connectors in the bottom of the motherboard and front panel headers and like fan connectors and stuff, and keep moving it in and out just so that I could cable tidy and get things in. So leave this literally until the moment that you're going to put the glass panel on and you're done. That's probably the best piece of advice I can give you for building this case completely. It actually did drive me a bit nuts, keep pulling this in and out. So it's a Ryu 3 360 ARGB for this, just so that if you are interested. This is actually a 3080 Strix. This was a 40th birthday present, and I'm still using it. I had to go and take it out from the Shedio rig so that I had something white and also with lots of cables that I could show you. Ripjaws M5 for the DRAM, and then the motherboard itself is the ROG Strix B850G gaming Wi-Fi. The power supply actually is an old Strix. The old Strix didn't even have a 12 VHPW mumbo jumbo, and that's why I needed one, A, with lots of cables, graphics card with lots of cables like this, but it also allowed me to be able to show you how messy it could get. So there's your parts breakdown. One of the things I do want to talk to you about are the fans, but when we do talk about the fans, we're going to talk about it from a testing standpoint, so I think it's probably best for us to move on. Okay, so moving on to testing, I did say about the fans I thought they were a bit lackluster. That's a very polite way of saying they don't really move a lot of air, they kind of just spin. So the majority of the cooling in the case was actually being done by the 2 fans in the bottom and the 3 fans in the roof. But I did find it kind of strange that the side fans here were being used as an exhaust, because it does mean that for the majority of systems you're going to have 3 in the bottom and then 6 exhausting. So I did try switching the fans around so they were an intake. And I do believe that they should have been reverse bladed fans, and I think it was just the fact that Asus didn't have a reverse bladed fan to hand for them to be able to fit to it. So we just got what they had. Now, because of the fact it's MATX, and I don't really test or haven't tested MATX cases in the past, so I've had to do this review slightly differently. So what I've done is I've got a 990X in there with the 3080, as I've said, a 360mm AIO, and then I've adjusted accordingly. So the 2000 RPM run that you will see will be the top and the bottom fans at 2000 RPM, but the Asus fans at 1600, which is their maximum. And then when it says 1500 RPM or 1000, everything is set to 1500 RPM or 1000. Now we do 2 separate runs. We do a separate dedicated CPU focused run, which we use OCCT to load up just the CPU. Then we use Unigine to load up predominantly just the graphics card to simulate gaming. But those two results are completely independent. So the CPU focus and the GPU focus has been done in that way. Because if you look at the GPU, that's going to give you your gaming temps. If you look at the CPU, that's going to give you your results if you are Blender or video editing or something like that. So we don't just do a game run and give you a simple result. It's caused a bit of confusion recently with even some American case manufacturers questioning why we don't just do one like everybody else. And now you know why. We want to be able to give you a range of results. So we've given you a range of results of CPU or GPU focused, and we've given you fan adjustment results. But because of the fact that we cannot put this into another graph because we haven't used this kit with anything else, it means that you're just getting the results that you will get with this kind of setup, and that's it. It's not how I like to do things. It does bother me, but it is just what I can do for you today. And what you can see in the results is by flipping the side fans round to an intake, it does bring the graphics card temperatures down slightly. But weirdly, what it did do was put the CPU temperatures up slightly, and that doesn't really make a great deal of difference considering it would have just been bringing more air in. Maybe there was some airflow confusion on that front fan or something. I don't know, but my advice to you is if you are predominantly going to be gaming, turn the fans around. If you are predominantly going to be using this as an office rig or something for home with a large CPU focus, leave them on exhaust. Maybe add the extra fan in the bottom though. My best piece of advice for this case would be junk the fans that it came with, unless you are just looking for something super quiet and are not bothered about temperatures, or you do not have a system that is going to create a great deal of heat. If you are going to be using it for gaming, you do want it to be quiet and you are conscious of your temperatures, upgrade the fans. It's going to be down to you to what you use, but I would personally go for something with a reverse blade in the side and in the bottom so that it looks nice, and then if you do have any RGB, it's going to work as you'd want. And then normal fans up in the roof for the exhaust and on whatever AIO you end up running. Right, so overall I'm going to give this extreme aesthetics. I really like the design of the case. I annoyingly really like this part, and it makes me want to do lots of other things with it. This bit down here, I did wish it did have a dust filter on it, because you're going to have no way of knowing whether that has got dusty or clogged up underneath unless you completely rip it apart. So being able to get up there to get a magnetic piece out would have made life a lot easier. But here's a twister for you. Because it is made out of steel, you can buy 360mm add-ons for magnetic dust filtering on eBay, and a lot of your local sort of like part stores, overclockers, Scan, that sort of thing, they all sell them. You can Google it really easy, or ChatGPT it if you're going to be with the cool kids and not make me sound old. But you can get those, and I would spend the £5–10 to add it in the bottom just for the sake of being able to whip it out, hoover it or blow it off and refit it. Talking of the £5 or £10, it is really expensive. £140 for an MATX case with lackluster fans, when in the grand scheme of things the curved piece of glass is predominantly what you're paying for. I do think that's more expensive than I would have liked. I also think they probably should have done a version of it without any fans in. And for a rare, struggling with my words today, but it's rare for me to say I would buy the version without the fans. But this is definitely the version I would not waste the money on the fans at all. Also, please, Asus, do an ATX one. We need a bigger version of this so that we can get other bigger boards in. It's a beautiful case. It's a lovely kind of design. We don't want to be kind of held back and can only get an MATX motherboard in there. We want to have a full-fledged option. We'd also love to be able to have a vertical graphics card in that ATX version as well. So, extreme aesthetics, because I do like the way it looks, but there are some shortfallings with the design and the fan choice that it comes with, and it is a bit expensive. But if you're in the market for an MATX case and you want something sleek on your desk that isn't going to look like loads of the other MATX cases out there, this could be the one for you.